You have expectations. You have expectations of yourself, expectations of others, and expectations of life in the world. Here's the thing, expectations are really just realities of our minds. It's a culmination of what we think should or shouldn't happen within ourselves, with others, within life in the world. Part of what I call expectations is conjured realities, right? Our conjured realities influence the decisions that we make. It influences how we connect with others, it influences how we connect with ourselves, and it influences how we connect within our lives. Our expectations influence the types of relationships that we have, the beliefs that we hold, and frankly, it influences our ability to accept reality as it truly is. So my question to folks is not, do you have expectations? It is, what expectations do you hold? And are those expectations adaptable or are they rigid? My question is never if a person has expectations. It is, what are those expectations? And are they adaptable or are they rigid? Rigid expectations often lead to us fighting reality. Rigid expectations leads to resistance. It leads to feeling stuck. And personally, I believe that being stuck is really just being resistant. It is having a part of you that is fighting reality of what is. There is no stuckness without resistance. That at least some piece of us is holding on to a conjured reality rather than what is actually true. Usually, this comes from a place of fear. Every single person I've ever met has had a fear of accepting reality at some point in their lives. We can fear what it means for us if we were to accept reality. We can fear what it means to our relationships, to ourselves, and to other people. We can fear that if we truly accept reality as it is, what would become of us? What will be the consequences? How would this change who I am or who they are? For this reason alone, there can be a part of us that resists reality by staying rigid within what we think should or shouldn't happen. There can be a part of us that resists reality by staying rigid within how we believe things should be. So, an example of that is, if there is a part of me that has the belief that life is hard, that's an expectation, right? I expect for life to be hard. Then I may have the expectation of myself that I have to work incredibly hard or I have to struggle for every single thing that I have. I know there's folks that can relate to that. There can be a part of me that has this belief or expectation that life is hard. And so that creates an expectation for me that I have to work hard or struggle for every single thing that I have in all areas of my life, maybe. So maybe I also have the expectation that others should also be clearly working hard or struggling to a certain extent if they really want something. So my belief that life is hard can be sustaining a belief that I think I have to work hard or struggle to get something because life is hard. It can also feed an expectation that other people should also be working hard or struggling to a certain extent if they really want something. And so if I don't see them working hard or struggling, then that must mean they don't really want it. So these expectations can absolutely lead to me taking the hard road because the easy path clearly cannot lead to what I really want. My expectation has already dictated that. The easy path can't take me to where I want to go. And so I choose, consciously or unconsciously, I choose the hard road every single time because I think that's what gives me the reward. Those expectations can lead to me being really judgy of others. Maybe I judge when others seem to quit or give up. And I have this belief that if they really wanted something, they would be willing to suffer to get it. Now, I feel like there's some folks who probably hear that and they're like, well, that just makes sense, right? And it doesn't. But that'll be a whole other conversation. Those expectations can lead to me judging others about quitting or giving up and me seeing that as a negative thing because if they really wanted something, they'd be willing to suffer to get it. That's a rigid expectation that also is not true. These expectations could also lead me to believe that the relationships that I have are only really worth it if they're riddled with conflict or disagreements that have to be overcome. So I could think, whether it's platonic or romantic relationships, that the relationships that's really worth it are the ones that we've had to overcome. We have the story of overcoming. That happens all the time where people have this idea of struggle love is the best love. That we have these stories of adversity that we've had to face within the relationship, and that's what's really caused this deepening of feeling in love. That is not true. But my expectations that life is supposed to be hard or that life is hard can create that. So perhaps in my life, when something comes easily, those rigid expectations that I harbor cause me to question that easy thing. Maybe when a relationship comes easily, it makes me question that person's sincerity or motive. Maybe when an opportunity falls into my lap, it fills me with anxiety or the feeling of being an imposter. Perhaps when life is easy, it fills me with a sense of guilt that other people are having to struggle. So this type of cycle can go on and deeper, as you can imagine. With rigid expectations, we can fight reality by creating conflict where there is none. We can turn down opportunities from a place of fear or sabotage. And quite frankly, we can come up with a lot of justifications for doing so. We could talk a really good game on why we're doing the things, but the basis of all of those decisions were rooted in fear. With adaptable expectations, however, it can give us the opportunity to accept reality that life does not have to be hard. Life does not have to be hard and filled with struggle to be worthwhile. And things that come easily are not less valuable. People who get things easily, it is not a less valuable experience. Suffering does not increase how much someone deserves something. And all that struggle does not always end in something beautiful. Because I know sometimes that's the way that we can justify it, right? It'll all be worth it in the end. All struggle does not end in something beautiful. Sometimes struggle just ends in more struggle because it's more of a habit than an actual reality of our lives. This is really a call to help people understand that expectations are not inherently bad. And again, I find it to be helpful to not ask if I have expectations or if a person has expectations. I find it to be helpful to say, what are those expectations? And are they adaptable or rigid? Expectations are not inherently bad. And when they are unexamined and rigid, that is what can create the chaos in our lives. That is what can maintain the resistance of fighting reality. The thing that I wanna leave you with is just to consider something. Consider this. Are your expectations coming from your ego, which is that place of you that's heavily influenced by your experiences in the world? Or are your expectations coming from your soul, that place within you that has a knowing that's far beyond your experiences and the influences of this earth? Are your expectations coming from your ego or your soul?